Is the Associated Press incompetent, or are they collaborating with terrorists? Is Israel's use of force in Gaza disproportionate? Why are the citizens of Israel taking advantage of the war with Gaza to attack their Jewish neighbors? Today we have a full update of the situation here in Israel right here on the Joshua and Caleb Report.
In a world plagued with anti-Israel propaganda, Paul Yavel presents the Joshua and Caleb Report, a positive voice of truth straight from Israel's heartland.
In a world of negativity and fake news, every Christian should be connected to the life and positivity that Israel brings to the world. Guys, if you like content like this, go ahead and subscribe, sign up, leave us comments. You know what we really love is when people leave comments. We really, really do enjoy that. We love to see that and actually get back to you. So do that. Leave some, hit the stars over there. Go ahead and give us like a lot of good stars. What do you call that?
The like button?
Likes.
Yeah, that was good, Josh. Very good. Good job.
Okay, guys, you know what? If I was ever irate, it would be now. Seeing the situation here in Israel and then seeing the international response, I'm telling you, I'm literally baffled that the international community is acting like they are. Guys, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to a little bit of the headlines that are going on in the big world. We're going to get to the insanity that's happening.
Everything that's happened in the last week. A little more than a week here in Israel. It's just there's insanity. So much we're not going to be able to cover it all, but we're going to try and get through the timeline, all the facts of what's actually happening, because whatever you're seeing on the news is a very good chance is not actually what's happening here. And we're here in the biblical heartland of Israel, which has been quiet from rockets, but has been seeing a lot of other things happening in the last week. So we're going to get to all that, including what's happening with Gaza, the rockets. Our phones right now are just buzzing with the rocket attacks. Every time rockets are shot, the alerts go off. So a lot happening. Stay tuned. Josh, you're going to start off with some of the extremely biased headlines that are circling the globe.
That's right. When I look at these headlines, literally, I said baffled. I really am. I'm just completely baffled that the world could see what's happening. And what I'm telling you is, guys, we've been on the ground here. We went to these sites of these situations. We've been to the riots. We've seen these things. We've seen the rockets flying in. I've seen the Iron Dome. Guys, we're not talking to you in ignorance here. We're talking to you as we've been there. We've seen it.
4 rockets that were shot when Hamas issued the ultimatum. I was in Jerusalem when those rockets were shot, and I heard the explosions of where they hit.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what the world's saying about this, guys. We're gonna clear it up here for you. This is BBC, CBS, Reuters, and CNBC. These are all the big guys. Okay. Yeah. This is just a little bit of what they're saying. They're saying Israel defense strategy as death tolls mounts. Okay, so this is one of their Netanyahu's. These are headlines for the world to see understand what's going on.
Which, by the way, is what most people they take the headlines and that's what they believe.
Right. Netanyahu says strikes to continue at full force. Rockets hit Israel after militants killed.
Oh, come on.
Right. Israel to ramp up deadly airstrikes on Gaza as rockets rain down and deaths mount on both sides. Gaza children bearing the brunt in Israel's Hamas conflict. Another one says Israel's airstrikes kill 33 Palestinians. Rockets fired from Gaza.
By the way, rockets were fired from Gaza.
By the way, and what are you saying? They're trying to say that Gaza children are bearing the brunt of Israel. They always say Israel-Hamas conflict. Right. Guys, Israel has nothing to do with this conflict. Hamas started the whole thing to start with.
Somebody
Israel
said
is defending.
It's not fair because Hamas doesn't have an Iron Dome system to defend themselves from Israeli airstrikes.
Yeah.
I think it was Naftali Bennett said, oh yeah, they do have an Iron Dome system. It's called Don't Fire Rockets at Israel. Israel doesn't just strike them for no reason.
The insanity of the world today is it's really insane. When I see, so this is what they want. If you've got a gun and you're attacking me, and I have a bigger gun, or let's just say you have a knife and I have a gun. The world today says that's not fair. You're the one that wants to kill me, right? Okay, right. So that's not fair.
But I only have a knife, and you have a gun, so you're bigger. You're stronger.
Yeah, and I need to put my gun down on the grounds, but I don't want to kill you.
Maybe there's 2 of me. Maybe it's me and my 2 buddies. Maybe there's 3 of us. We're attacking you with knives. You take out your gun. You shoot me. The world headlines are disproportionate use of force because 3 assailants only had knives while bigger person who was defending himself had a gun and killed 2 of them.
And it even gets worse, Luke, because now that Hamas in Gaza has launched thousands of rockets at Israel, now the global world is not only covering the headlines with IDF kills Arab, kills Palestinian. They're making it. They're taking it to an atrocious level where they're trying to bash Israel now, and they're trying to create a peace, a ceasefire, so that Israel cannot take care of business. Guys, these are
let's make
lethal.
it. I mean, okay, they're saying children are killed in Gaza, which is horrific.
Terrible.
But what's actually happening? My 2 buddies and I are attacking you. Maybe we do have guns or whatever, and then maybe you have a rifle, so that's why you're bigger.
I'm big.
We take our children and we hold them up in front of us as human shields while we're coming at you and shooting, and then they get killed and the world condemns it because the innocent civilians were killed. That's what Hamas does. They're hiding the rocket launchers in schools and hospitals. In the past, the last war, there was even a UN hospital, I believe, that had like weapons stored there, rocket launchers. They're using all. We're going to get to the crazy story of the Associated Press. Hang on for that. That one has me fired up. But let's go through the timeline. Okay, number 1, Israel's use of force is not disproportionate, and number 2, Israel did not start this conflict. So remember those 2 things. No matter what you're hearing in the mainstream media, you need to know that. Not disproportionate use of force. Israel did not start this conflict.
Luke, before you get into the timeline, when we talk about disproportionate use of force, if it was not Israel and the Jewish people that were at war, no nation, no person in the world would say anything against it. If another nation attacks another nation and it doesn't, there's no like proportionate force, the bigger one wins. Like nobody has ever brought this into discussion.
Nobody condemns a country or a city for defending themselves. If London was being bombed, if Paris was under rocket attack, New York City, Chicago, nobody would condemn them for fighting back, defending themselves, and trying to eliminate the enemy that's bombing their city.
This has always been the understanding that if you're attacked, you defend yourself. And that's what Israel's
when
doing.
It comes to Israel.
The only exception is Israel and the Jewish people. This, guys, this is just blatant anti-Semitism on the world stage.
Okay, let's get into the timeline. We don't have a lot of time on the show today because we've got so much to cover, okay? A lot of people think Sheikh Jarrah, the evictions that were set to happen, which, by the way, have been delayed and put off now, so Hamas really doesn't have an excuse. A lot of people think that's what started it, and that the police or the IDF went into the Temple Mount, stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which did not happen.
No, news reported that it happened, though.
Right, but it didn't happen. So those 2 things are what the world believes sparked this conflict. Here's what really happened. Ramadan just finished in Israel. If you have ever been here during that time period, you know it's guaranteed the 40 days of Ramadan are an increased level of violence, okay? Rock throwings, riots, protests, terrorist attacks, you name it. Okay, so that's normal. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but that's normal. Israel prepares for it every year. Ramadan finished last week. So a lot of this conflict was still during the time of Ramadan. There was increased tension during Ramadan. There was TikTok videos of Arabs attacking Jews. There's a real well-known one of a guy that walks up to a Jew on the light rail in Jerusalem, just slaps him across the face. It's on TikTok, goes viral. That's one of the, nicer ones. There's other ones of Jews just getting beat up, pummeled, just in the street. So a lot of stuff happening outside Damascus Gate, a lot in the old city of Jerusalem, a lot of attacks, okay? Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, canceled the PA elections that were set to happen, right? That also sparked a lot of outrage amongst the Palestinians because he's been in power for like 15 years, way overdue, a lot of corruption. Palestinians are tired of what's going on in their government. Hamas runs, I just actually found this out. They started running a incitement to violence campaign for PA Arabs, Palestinians. Just encouraging them, putting ads out saying go attack Jews kind of thing. Unrest in the old city, so then we have unrest on the Temple Mount in conjunction with Ramadan. You also have imams preaching in the mosque, go attack Israel, that kind of thing.
Right.
Even in the US, I saw a video from the last couple of weeks, same kind of thing.
I was saying there's Jews everywhere.
And then Hamas decides to use the story that's going on in Sheikh Jarrah, which has been going on for over 20 years now, of different scenarios here, to go to violence, right? Here's a quick overview of what happened in Sheikh Jarrah. You have Ottoman Turkish Empire period. You have Jews and Palestinians in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. It's also the Shimon HaTzadik, the Simeon the Righteous. His tomb is in that area. A famous Jewish man that was buried. His tomb is in the area. You have Jews and Arabs. 1948, the War of 1948, the Jews are kicked out because after the armistice line is drawn, that area is in Jordan. So the Jews are kicked out of their neighborhood. And then in the last 20 years or so, there was a law that said if a Jewish person could prove his claim to property, then he could reclaim it. There's been these four houses in the latest story. They finally decided that the Jews could have their property back, and the Arabs that were living there who haven't paid rent for 30 years. Yeah. So they're Arab squatters. They had to be evicted. And the world, especially Hamas, uses this as a opportunity to attack Israel. Okay, so that brings us up to Jerusalem Day. This is last Monday, so about 9 days ago now. Hamas issues an ultimatum on Jerusalem Day because on that day, I was in Jerusalem for the day celebrations. You were there too, right?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
There was a parade that was supposed to happen, an annual parade. They're celebrating Israel's liberation in 1967. But at the same time, there's riots on the Temple Mount, and the police have to go in, right? And take down the riots. It had been happening for a couple days. That's where people got the idea that the Al-Aqsa Mosque was stormed. Guess what? There's videos and photos of rocks being stockpiled inside the mosque. I even saw a guy with a wheelbarrow bringing rocks in, right, to the mosque on the Temple Mount. And so the police have to go in because they know this is about to be a huge deal, and massive, massive riots were sparked up there. I mean, crazy violence.
Against the police.
So that's happening. Hamas issues an ultimatum: remove your troop to Israel, remove your troops from the Temple Mount, remove security forces from Sheikh Jarrah, or we're going to fire rockets at 6 p.m. So I'm sitting on the side of the road waiting for the parade to start at 20 minutes to 6. I happen to look at my phone, and I see they'd issued this ultimatum, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And at 6:03, the air raid siren goes off, which I've never heard for real before. I've heard it in practice, when they're doing the drills. Goes off, everybody clears off to the side of the road, and within seconds we heard explosions. We thought it was the Iron Dome taking the rockets out. We actually found out rockets fell on an outlying neighborhood 4.5 miles from where we were. Actually, shrapnel hit a house.
Let's show that. We should show that.
So I shot a video right after this. Let's show that video right now. Hey guys, hopefully you can hear me. We're here in Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day, and there's so much going on. Probably won't be able to explain it all. Obviously, a lot of excitement. This street is all locked down because there's an annual parade that happens. They've been trying to start the parade, but then at the last minute they canceled it. Although I'm not sure if everybody even knows, because Hamas is threatening Israel if they don't relinquish certain things, which is so complicated. Basically, they want to take all their troops off the Temple Mount and remove all the security from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, which is where you've heard they're trying to evict Arabs from their homes, which used to be Jewish homes. So all that going on, Hamas is threatening to shoot rockets, and actually we're just standing about 100 yards that way. The red alert siren went off, and everybody had to get off the road, and then a few seconds later we heard explosions, which hopefully was the Iron Dome shooting the rockets down. So that's what's happening in Jerusalem right now. There's riots. There was riots on the Temple Mount this morning. There's been riots in the Old City. And in the meantime, you probably heard there was a big fire on the Mount of Blessing, and most of our trees were burned down. So keep us in your prayers.
Luke, thanks for showing catching that while you're there on site. As we know now, as you just said, the rocket actually did land in Jerusalem. And since that time, we've seen over 3,700 rockets.
By the time you watch this,
flying
probably more.
Probably more. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have the red alert app, it's the only one I know of, you can actually stand with Israel and pray for Israel, as in literally see when the rockets are flying, you see where they're actually flying into. Get that app, and so you can be more in tune with Israel. Literally, my phone has been ding, 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 ding all day long from rockets flying in from Gaza. Insanity that a little place like this, and you know what's even more insane, Luke, is that I hear people like Jen Psaki in the White House saying that the only way to restore calm is to get a two-state solution. Saying, do you not remember
high level of ignorance
how all of this started in the first place? Gaza was in Israel's hands. Israel pulled out of Gaza, and not only Not any of this, none of this happened until they pulled out.
Well, there wouldn't be rockets being shot from Gaza if Israel had not tried to give away land to the Arabs.
Right. And according to the White House, and especially the current administration, stands 100% behind a two-state solution, which the example of Gaza is the only example we have of exactly that. Give land to the enemy, and then they're going to be at peace with you. Right. When they're all screaming from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Right. They're saying we want to annihilate the Jewish people, and they're saying the Jews are not only in Israel, they're in all over the world. Attack them wherever they are. We want to see basically Hitler theology is the goal. Yeah. Kill them all. Kill them all. Right. This is what they're saying. As far as rockets go, Luke, we have 400 rockets have actually even fallen inside. I
think even more actually, but that's the last stat I could find.
We've got
and people don't realize that 3,700 rockets shot at Israel. More than 400 of them fallen inside Gaza, and a lot of the Gazans that have been injured and probably killed have been from their own rockets.
And this is the other big thing, Luke, that we have to touch because the international media is going absolutely ballistic on this. They're saying there's so many children killed.
Right.
And they're saying that Israel's killing these children. Well, we have to explain to everybody what's going on.
Right.
Literally, before Israel blows up a building, which no other military in the entire world does this, you don't tell your enemy, I'm about to blow up this building.
Right.
That's insanity.
But
really,
Israel knows that Hamas is hiding amongst civilians and children.
Yeah.
And they want to do everything they can not to hurt the civilians.
Which actually causes casualties on the IDF side because the IDF sends ground troops in to do something. They actually have to play... Their rules are unbelievable. No other military in the world holds to these standards. They drop a little warning. It's not even a bomb. It's just a loud noise.
They call it roof knocking.
Yeah, roof knocking.
But that's their last warning. A lot of times, we're going to see in the story in a second, they make phone calls. They drop leaflets. They tell people, you have 1 hour or however much time, get out of the building.
Right. And then they blow it up. Okay, so how are these children dying? Literally, Luke, the Hamas knows that if children are killed, this is what gets the international media going. Right. And the whole thing, as you will learn, we're going to talk about it next week, is what the international stage looks like. This is what they're doing. They're staging everything for international media. It's an international media skit. The whole thing. And this is what's going on, and we have video to prove it, in which we will. Yeah. But this is what's going on, and this is how children are dying. They're literally pulling their children into these buildings before they're being bombed and killing their own children, and then blaming Israel for it.
And they don't care when rockets fall inside their own inside Gaza because they know they're going to win in the international media.
Yeah. And Luke, you can tell that also by just go on their own things. Right. They're not going to say exactly what I just said, but you will see 6-year-olds with machine guns. Yeah. What are they doing? They're prepping them to go out
to be martyrs. Yeah. Yep. We'll be right back with the rest of the show. But first, did you know that in addition to the Joshua and Caleb Report show, we have an entire Joshua and Caleb network? Do you want to learn about the weekly Torah portion from a Jewish perspective? Join Christian Zionist Zach Waller and Orthodox Jewish Rabbi Yonadav Zar as they dive into the Torah portion every Thursday on the Heartland Connection. If you want to get to know the people, land, and traditions of Israel, Talking Israel, hosted by Tommy Waller and premiering every Monday, is the perfect show for you. Tommy is joined by inspiring guests from Israel who share powerful insights from the land and people of Israel every single week. If you're a reader, every Friday we publish a short, easy-to-read article on the Heartland Report. From the latest news from Israel, teachings based on the holidays, and biblical feasts or special stories from the Heartland, the Heartland Report is always filtered through a biblical and prophetic lens. You can get any or all of this content entirely for free on the Joshua and Caleb Network. You just have to go to joshuaandcaleb.com and sign up for the content of your choice, or just sign up for all of it. Don't settle for lies and negativity when it comes to Israel. Subscribe for free to the Joshua and Caleb Network and become a powerful, confident voice for Israel today. Just go to joshuaandcaleb.com and subscribe completely free today. So 3,700 rockets fired from Gaza into Israel, more than 400 fallen inside Gaza. Total of 12 people in Israel have been killed, with over 300 injured in rocket attacks. The Gaza Health Authority is reporting 212 people killed, 1,400 injured. But this is what you need to know. 160 of those people, that's assuming that these stats are correct if we're going to trust the Gaza Health Authority. 160 of these people are terrorists, 120 Hamas terrorists, 40 the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is also part of this whole thing in Gaza. So obviously tragic that civilians are killed in Gaza. Most of them are terrorists, though, and the civilians that are killed are 100% Hamas's fault. The IDF has destroyed 9.4 miles of terror tunnels. They had a brilliant move last week. So the IDF had a brilliant move. They put out a headline making Hamas think that they were about to invade with ground troops. Hamas pulls all their elite terrorists into the terror tunnels because they think ground troops are going to come in, will pop out of the ground, and will attack them, right? So they pulled all their terrorists away from the civilian areas, and then the IDF comes in the space of 35 minutes, they drop 450 bombs on the terror tunnels. And that's how they destroyed almost 10 miles of terror tunnels. So I saw that and I was like, oh, the international media is going to have a fun time trying to figure out how to condemn Israel for this one.
And this is how they started to go at it, Luke.
Absolutely brilliant.
After this happened, they say, we've got to cover this quickly, guys, because this is insanity. The press building. So is it a press building or a Hamas building?
The Associated Press, right?
Yeah. Along with Al Jazeera, the Arab News, and Hamas. And the AP says, we didn't know Hamas was there. How are we supposed to know? Well, duh, you're supposed to know.
I'm really sorry.
You're a journalist.
I'm really sorry, Associated Press, but either way, you look really, really stupid right now. And I'm sorry that we don't use that word a lot, but it's just stupidity.
That's the worst word we can think of.
Because if you didn't know a terrorist organization is in your building, and Hamas isn't like the mafia, like they're not like undercover. Hamas is the government of Gaza. They're the governing power. If you didn't know a terrorist organization is in your building, then you're really stupid and incompetent. If you did know, that puts you in direct collaboration with a terrorist organization, and you should be shut down. That's, I think, all we have to say.
That's really all we have to say.
But the IDF gave them, I believe, 2 hours to get out of the building.
Yeah, and the AP person said they barely got out.
Right.
Like, what? If they would have done what they should have done in any normal situation, any other military would have just bombed their enemies, and if you were right beside them, then you would have just been killed.
Yeah.
No other military would have said, hey, would you please go outside so we could blow up this building? And literally, the IDF is waiting for them to go out. They're watching them and waiting for them to go out.
Giving the Hamas opportunity to get out of the building as well.
Right, so basically they only blow up the building, and they let them pull everything else they want out of it. Absolutely insanity. And what's even more insane, Luke, the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, this guy, I don't know, maybe he's got some good things, but I'm telling you, when he says statements that side more with Hamas than your ally, Israel is an ally to the United States.
Is speaking out of two sides of their mouth right now.
Yeah, he basically says both. He basically tells the internet because he goes under fire. They're like, well, Secretary of State, did you not know that, or did Israel actually prove that Hamas was in this building? Because obviously everybody's going haywire over this. And he says, well, he didn't take the benefit of the doubt that obviously if Israel blew it up, Hamas was there. I mean, obviously. Yeah. The Secretary of State instead says, well, I've actually seen no proof that Hamas was actually in the building. Right. This is what an ally does?
And then later on he comes out and says, Israel did send us evidence, right?
Israel has now sent us evidence that this is what happened.
That's unacceptable. Totally, speaking on two sides of their mouth and obviously, slamming Israel under the bus for it. So, either way, Associated Press, sorry, you're just not going to win on this one. And no. I wouldn't recommend paying rent in a building that shares space with a terrorist organization. That's probably not a good idea.
No. Guys, there's so much more to cover here, Luke. We really could go on for a long time on this topic. We want to give a really quick summary of the riots that are also happening. We not only have the bombs flying into Israel, we have tons of aggression happening. We have 3 fronts. We have the Gaza front, the Judea-Samaria front, and actually within Israel as well is a serious front because we have Israeli Arabs inside of Israel, they call Israel proper, that are acting just like Gaza and Judea-Samaria Arabs.
We need to be clear on this. These are citizens of Israel, full citizens, Arab citizens of Israel, right?
Yeah.
That are using this opportunity of the war with Gaza to attack their Jewish neighbors. Hamas actually said the Arab citizens of Israel are our first line of defense.
And that's what
there's been horrible. They're actually comparing the violence and load in Israeli city close to the coast to Kristallnacht. Like, that's how bad it's been. And a lot of people that we know from this area have actually gone to Lod to help their brothers and sisters, to help protect them, because the police, I don't know if they were just spread thin or what, but they were not able to protect the people of Lod. You're talking about burnings, tires burnings, riots, rock throwings, cars torched, synagogues burned.
10 synagogues burned.
On and on.
10 synagogues. There's a whole list here I wish I could go through. Can we
run through this real quick? Because I think people need to know.
Yeah, we're going to go over time. But
if you want to know, it might be a little long. You got to stick with us today, guys. If you want to know how many, what's the difference, Israeli side versus Arab side? Here you go. Synagogues burnt in Israel, 10. Mosques burnt, 0. Synagogues used to stockpile stones and Molotov cocktails, 0 as synagogues. Mosques, for the same thing, 28, not including Al-Aqsa. So mosques in Israel are stockpiling weapons to attack Israel. Mosques used to encourage rioters, 22. Synagogues used to encourage rioters, 0. Jewish homes burnt, 112.
Homes burnt.
Homes. Arab homes burnt, 1. Guess who ignited it?
Arabs.
The Arabs.
No Jews lit Arab
Jewish homes plundered, 386. Arab homes plundered, 0. Jewish homes damaged, 67. Arabs homes damaged, 13. Jewish cars burnt, 849. Arab cars burnt, 13. There have been prolonged arrests of armed Jews. There have not been any arrests of armed Arabs. Stones thrown at uninvolved Arabs, 41. Stones thrown at uninvolved Jews, 5,018. If that doesn't give you a very clear picture of what is happening here, I don't know what else will. And you have to tell people about this. This is the truth of what's happening here on the ground in Israel.
Guys, we're gonna just have to stop right there with that. But we want to tell you, next week we've got an incredible show coming up. We actually went into these riots. It's a total skit. It's unbelievable what these guys are doing. It's a total play.
You saw it driving, right?
And you literally saw it.
Grabbed the camera.
We grabbed the camera.
Went down there.
We went into there and we
saw it. You
have
have to see this. You will never see this on any other news outlet anywhere.
You want to see it, and you're about to see it next week. So be sure and jump on there. If you think the whole Associated Press thing is a ridiculous, just unbelievable deal, well, next week you're going to find that there's a whole lot more of them. It's not just the Associated Press. It's the whole media gamut. They're all corrupted. Guys,
there's things we didn't even cover. We've had fires here in the heartland of Israel almost every day over the last week. We made a video with 2,500 of our trees were burnt. We made a video right after fighting fires for like 6 hours the other day here on the Mount of Blessing. Check that out on our social media page. Just terrorist attacks, everything happening here in Judea and Samaria on a daily basis. And we got more to come. We're going to keep reporting. Check our social media every day for updates, videos, photos, things that are happening here on the ground in Israel. If you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Joshua and Caleb, that really helps us get more content and the truth of what's happening here in Israel out to the world. Patreon.com/Joshua and Caleb. In the meantime, be strong, be courageous, and be the voice of Joshua and Caleb and your generation. Hi guys, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We also have tons more incredible content straight from Israel's heartland, which you can find completely free at joshuaandcaleb.com. If you're interested in signing up for a life-changing volunteer program in Israel's heartland, you can go to serveisrael.com. We host Christians from all over the world to help plant trees, harvest grapes, prune vines, and basically help farmers all over Judea and Samaria, all while experiencing the land and people of Israel in a way that you're never going to get on a 10-day tour. Just go to serveisrael.com to find out more information.